There were 14 dynasty-relevant players drafted in round 1 of this year's NFL draft. That is astronomically large for the first round. I mean, you're talking about a record number almost of consecutive offensive players, but again, from the dynasty perspective, let's look at our dynasty rankings after night 1. This is all subject to change. Things are going to shift, but right now in the S tier, it's going to be Caleb and Marv. And Caleb, obviously going to the Bears, good landing spot. Getting Rome, oh my gosh. What a great situation for Caleb Williams. Really excited about this. And honestly, I don't think there's a world where we take Marv over Caleb very much. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr. in his own right. I think Marv going to the Cardinals, I guess I just was trying not to get excited about it. This is a big deal. And this is Kyler Murray and Marv. I think that's going to be, you're going to an offense with a lot of vacated volume, really no vacated volume. And it is wide open for him. He's going to be playing with a good quarterback that can get him the ball. I think he's a guy that comes in and produces right away. He has a really high floor as a receiver. It was a really good night for both of those guys. And we also saw that S2 tier that we had been talking about develop with how many guys went top 12. And so this S2 tier, it's the A tier, but really, really nice looking tier here as tier 2. I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, and I kind of want to do this in order of, because our rankings are going to come out, post draft once day 3 is all set in stone and everything. So these are kind of just our initial thoughts. But let's start with the easy guys, the guys that haven't really changed in value, that aren't really going to fluctuate much after they were taken in the draft. And that's going to start with Jaden Daniels, right? Jaden Daniels. He went to Washington, just like Brian Kelly said, and there's nothing really there that's going to change at all. We know what the situation is. We know what the risk is. He has great rushing upside. Went 2nd overall. Got all the draft capital you could ever dream of. If you're a Jaden Daniels fan, love it. Let's move on. Drake May goes 3rd overall to the New England Patriots. Everyone hates it. Everyone is going to think it's disgusting. We did multiple mock drafts after the first round of the NFL draft late last night on Thursday night, and we saw Drake May consistently fall to... By the way,
it's 1:10 in the morning right now.
Yeah.
We're tired.
Yeah. We saw Drake May fall consistently to 6th or 7th overall really. After going 3rd overall in the NFL draft. And guys, we predicted this pre-draft, and we were right. Drake May is this year's CJ Stroud from a value perspective. People are going to let him slide, and you need to take him.
And that's not to say that from a talent perspective, from a situation perspective,
that he's the same. He's not.
But you're talking about drafting a guy with top 3 draft capital at the 107 in Dynasty Superflex leagues.
It's about
Drake
the price.
May, obviously the receiving core is going to be an issue. The offense is going to be questionable. But let's please consider that offense and that organization is going to look different than it has for the past 20 years. And so we can't take Drake May and put him in the Bill Belichick Patriots because they're not the Bill Belichick Patriots anymore. And you can make the argument that the Gerard Mayo Patriots will be almost the same, but I think we should be a little bit more cautious with that. That being said, it's all about the price, and Drake May is shaping out so far to be somebody that in dynasty leagues is going to be one of those guys when you down tiered, you're going to be really happy you down tiered and got Drake May at the 107.
Well, how often are you getting the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft at that price, which we expect to be 6th or 7th overall?
And not to mention, you've seen JJ McCarthy go as low as the 109 in some of these mocks. Preliminarily, things are going to change. But McCarthy right now, McCarthy, the dream landing spot we really thought about for him when you're talking about a coach that can develop JJ McCarthy, weapons that JJ McCarthy can really use to develop, and also weapons that, I don't think they heavily benefit from the addition of JJ McCarthy, but I do think it's good that they have some kind of plan at quarterback outside of Sam Darnold now. And so you're talking about that. You're talking about, so when we talked about the best landing spot for McCarthy, the Vikings were going to be it. And so for McCarthy, I think McCarthy is a top 14 dynasty quarterback right off the bat. I think this is a really good landing spot for a quarterback. I like that it was McCarthy to be with O'Connell. I think he's going to be developed well there. And honestly, Nathan is a loser, like a huge loser, because Nathan said that McCarthy's going to fall the 2nd round, and he was wrong about that. And everybody knows that I was right about it. And I just wanted to throw that in there. But at the same time,
he didn't go top 5, that's for sure. And I think he's going to lose.
He went 10.
I don't think he's going to go as high as some people were expecting him to go. And that's why he could be a really good value. Exactly. And that's why his price is going to be really nice.
And this is where you see our philosophy of how to play Dynasty come in to play. Like, you've got JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy, where am I ranking him in let's just look at this. Against other QBs in Dynasty, where am I ranking JJ McCarthy as the Minnesota Vikings quarterback? Is he going to even start this year? I'm taking Lawrence over him, Daniels over him, Purdy over him, Prescott over him, May over him, Tua over him. You're talking already.
You're talking QB 20
max.
He's not a top 14 Dynasty quarterback.
And so we have that in mind. But when you're talking about getting a quarterback at the 109 in Superflex leagues that got top 10 draft capital, guys, that the value insulation there is just mind-boggling.
But it will be interesting to see where McCarthy ends up settling, because right now it seems like the volatility market value wise lies with JJ McCarthy, where he could go reasonably as high as a 104, 105, and he could go reasonably as low as a 108, 109. I'm capitalizing on him when he goes on the lower end.
And a lot of people are asking, like that's why we were down tiering.
Yep.
Let's talk about the receivers now, because there's some interesting narratives here. Talk about Neighbors.
Yeah, so Neighbors goes to the New York Giants, and at face value, it's gross. They don't have a QB. Obviously, one of our takes was that the Giants may take a receiver first round and then a QB second round, and then lo and behold, 6 QBs go in the top 12, and the Giants are left with Daniel Jones as their top QB. So what do we do here? We still take Neighbors here in this tier because it's Malik Neighbors, and he went 6 overall in the NFL draft, and this is where he belongs. And if he really is as good as everyone believes, then he will be able to transcend situation. And keep in mind that there have been a lot of people who have advocated for Malik Neighbors being exclusively a slot receiver in the NFL because he is so good. And
50% slot rate in college.
Right. He's capable.
That's not 70, not 80, 50.
No, but he's capable of transitioning, of moving to exclusively slot for the betterment of the team. He could totally.
He's good enough to be a big slot. But he's also good enough to line up off the line of scrimmage.
Right. But when you're talking about volume for a quarterback that is not capable of consistently pushing it downfield, he can get targets anywhere on the field because he can play anywhere on the field. That's the point, and that's why we're not really worried about Neighbors going to the Giants.
No.
People expected Odunze to go to the Giants, and they were like, he's going to lose a ton of value. I'm going to be way lower on him. That's going to happen with Neighbors now because he got that landing spot. Don't fall for it. Take him at price and take him when the value falls. The
value insulation there is really, really good.
Yeah, and then Rome Odunze goes to the Chicago Bears, which is not something that we expected at all. Some people were like, hey, they're going to go offense here at 9. I thought they'd go defense for sure. Now, to me, this just solidifies Caleb Williams as the 101. Hands down, not like we didn't believe that before, but you need to take Caleb Williams in Superflex leagues at the 101 over everyone else. It's not close. Odunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet at tight end, and DeAndre Swift in the backfield. That's one of the best offenses that you could step into as a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And Odunze, a lot of people are going to take his landing spot and say that it's not a good landing spot. And I will go back to what I said before the draft. I think with these top 3 receivers here, when you have them going to a team with an existing wide receiver that is productive, I think when you're drafting one of these 3 guys, you're drafting over those guys. I think they drafted over DJ Moore tonight. Look, DJ Moore's great. Rome Odunze's legit. He has as high a ceiling, if not higher than DJ Moore in the NFL. And Keenan Allen is on a 1-year deal. I'm not worried about that. Caleb Williams and Rome coming into the league at the same time, on the same team, both top 10 picks. You think about the chemistry developed between quarterbacks and wide receivers, right? Like that get drafted together. I like it. I am not worried about this landing spot whatsoever. And then in this next tier of guys, what?
I promise we're not looking over this guy. And I want to bring him up at least for a second.
Okay. Who?
With the 8th overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons selected Michael Penix Jr.
2024 NFL Draft.
Oh, they say shit.
The Atlanta Falcons select Michael Penix.
What?
Washington.
What are you doing?
Oh, wow. Oh. So the first.
What do we do?
Wow.
He was the 4th quarterback off the board in the NFL draft, and we could go on and on and on about our opinion and our take of why the frick the Falcons would do that at the 8th overall pick in the NFL draft. The 8th most valuable asset in the NFL draft is basically what they said about Michael Penix when they paid Kirk Cousins 3 or 4 years, $45 million every single year. They drafted a 23-year-old quarterback who's probably going to have to sit for the next 2 seasons, we would assume. That's our assumption. But honestly, I don't really know what's going to happen.
I don't know.
I don't know. And
it's the most confusing pick I've ever seen.
And because of that, he's falling down our rankings, and he's going to fall down everyone's rankings. But at the end of the day, the draft capital does speak for itself, and Michael Penix having top 10 draft capital as a quarterback in Superflex leagues does have value. And they took him for a reason there, good or bad. there's some reason they took him there.
Yeah.
and that means that you're not gonna be able to let him fall too far. Like I see a world in Superflex formats where he still falls so far because people just think, oh, Jordan Lovey's not going to play for 3 or 4 years. I don't necessarily think that's the case.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
It's interesting. It's the most confusing pick I've ever seen in the first round of the NFL draft. Like, I'm not even exaggerating.
One of the most shocking picks I've ever seen ever.
All right, we got to go to Xavier Worthy now. Xavier Worthy going to the Kansas City Chiefs. This really is when we started to round out this draft class. Is like, okay, this is going to be good because this is a guy you're going to get consistently 108, 109, 110. And that's great value for a guy that ran a 4.21 and is playing with the best quarterback to step on a football field in Patrick Mahomes. That situation's nuts. I don't think he becomes overvalued because I don't see him jumping. The receivers in front of him went so high in the draft. I don't see him jumping any of those guys. I don't see him jumping the quarterbacks. So I think he's going to be a fine value where you're taking him. I'm not super worried about Hollywood Brown. It's a 1-year trial deal. Like, I think they drafted Xavier Worthy with a plan in mind. I think he's going to work well with Travis Kelce. I think him and Rashee Rice, a lot of people have asked about that. Very good complementary pieces. You've got Rashee Rice playing a lot of slot wide receiver. I think Rashee Rice is a good value in Dynasty right now. But Xavier Worthy, this is a solid pick you're going to get here at the end of the first round.
Yeah, and that said, there is a hard cutoff where I am no longer taking Xavier Worthy at price, and this is the current price. If he starts going any higher than this and starts bleeding into that tier that we have above the one that he's in right now, I'm not taking him at the moment, and I'll take him later when he's cheaper potentially. Bo Nix belongs in this tier, man, and it can be unpopular. It can be disgusting, and people can say he has no higher upside than Brock Purdy. I don't care. He was a first-round pick, went top 12 to the Denver Broncos into a situation that, isn't ideal, but it also has, Super Bowl champion Sean Payton as the head coach. I would trust him more than I'd trust us. And we already liked Bo Nix a fair amount going into the draft anyways. I think maybe I'm higher on Nix than you are. I know you don't love him, but regardless of our opinions,
the draft capital,
regardless of our opinions, you have to let the draft capital speak for itself, and you have to take him in the late first year, which is where he's going to go.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I think Nix is going to be a good value there at the end of the first as well. You haven't even talked about Brian Thomas Jr., who went to a good landing spot. When you're talking about him and playing with Christian Kirk, I think they're two complementary pieces that are going to complement each other very well. I think Kirk being primarily a slot wide receiver, you had that. Malik Neighbors playing a lot of slot at LSU with Brian Thomas being the X guy most of the time lined up outside. They're going to use him in a very similar way. I think he's more skilled as one of those big body X wide receivers that we've seen come out in recent years. So between the landing spot, between the skill set, I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a guy. Again, you're getting 108 to 110, and you're really happy about that. That's a really solid pick, a solid landing spot, solid draft capital, good talent, good skill set, good measurables, good analytics. I think right now, guys, these three guys, Worthy, Nix, and Brian Thomas Jr., you're sitting in the late first, and you're like, I cannot believe I'm getting one of these guys with the 110, 111. That is what this draft class, and we haven't even gotten to Brock Bowers yet, who admittedly...
Moment of silence, first of all. Moment of silence for Brock Bowers going to Las Vegas Raiders.
They definitely just put an ad in there, too.
Yeah.
He was our biggest faller. Right?
As he should be. I think this is one of the scenarios where the wave is almost too large for me to keep my head above. And it's got to be understandable. He objectively lost value where people invested in picks pre-draft to acquire Brock Bowers as their savior at the tight end position.
Sure.
They will no longer be able to get him there because he will be too much of a reach, or they will be forced to sacrifice value to reach for him there.
Yeah.
Because they're so desperate for someone at tight ends. This sucks big time. And honestly, a landing spot that no one saw coming. Right. Zero. They just drafted Michael Mayer in the second round last year.
It's such bad team building. It really does hurt his dynasty value.
It's terrible. And honestly, I'm not optimistic about it at all. I am expecting the worst, and there will obviously always be a point where where any player's price gets so low to a point where I will eventually invest in them. But I for now have not much interest in Brock Bowers at all.
All right, so let's talk about the two guys that capped off the first round, gave us two more additional first round wide receivers in Ricky Pearsall, and then Xavier Legette. So Ricky Pearsall first. These are two interesting landing spots and ones that people aren't going to be super high on. These are guys that are sliding even now under guys that haven't even been drafted in our mock drafts that we've done after round 1 because people are just not willing to take them at the end of the first or early second. Just not willing to. And for Pearsall, the reason is obviously right now you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Pearsall. And so we talked about this. You've got to think that they're going to move one of Ayuk or Debo. When you're talking about the fit in San Francisco, you're probably thinking Pearsall fits better alongside Brandon Ayuk. Apparently the chatter is that Debo might get traded, which would be interesting for Dynasty. I think there are a lot of teams where he could still be very, very effective on and work really well on. But if and when that happens, you draft Ricky Pearsall, who got first round draft capital, going to a team that drafts fairly well. John Lynch, good GM, great offense. Shanahan, great offensive mind, and you're drafting him potentially right now at the mid second, late second. Because of that, he turns into a value as soon as somebody else traded. Like his value goes up 40%.
Yep.
Easily. Yep. So Ricky Pearsall, if he's a guy that's falling into like the second round of your dynasty draft, so you're taking him. You're taking him. You're taking him there for sure. And honestly, this was one of those things which we bumped him up in our rankings, but
I did not expect
not
him to end up this high.
It was a guy that Dynasty people got high on, really high on, and Dynasty Twitter and all that got high on, and just ended up panning out. They ended up being right about this. And from the NFL, again, good scouting department in San Francisco. It's a big deal, I think, that he went first round, and I think it's a good I think he's going to end up being a good value in these rookie drafts because of the situation in San Francisco. And then the last guy that was drafted tonight, which this pick, man, just makes no sense to me, was Xavier Legette, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, Legette, I mean, what do I say? I'm sorry, Carolina Panthers fans, or maybe I should be optimistic for you and be happy for you if you're happy for Legette and happy about getting him. We've been notably low on Legette in the pre-draft process. We did not think he would sniff the first round. Lo and behold, he sniffs the first round. He gets into the first round. Last pick, 32nd overall. The Panthers trade up with the Buffalo Bills to get this guy. I feel like this is Jonathan Mingo all over again, but you're getting a 23-year-old instead of a 21-year-old. What's the upside? I guess higher than some other situations because there's no one there outside of Deontay Johnson. But let me tell you today, Deontay Johnson is the number one target there, and he will be the commander of targets consistently in that offense. So am I expecting a huge first year for Xavier Legette to be hyper productive or anything like that and to massively increase in value? I don't know. I probably wouldn't put my money on it because I trust the better route runner in Deontay Johnson that they just traded for in the offseason. So look, Legette, you have to respect the draft capital and respect the landing spot that he got because we were going to respect it for any other receiver that was going to go there. So you do have that going for him, and Mingo just didn't pan out. Maybe Legette will. Maybe he will defy all odds and his situation will prove to be better than we ever expected. But at the moment, he belongs in this tier, and he'll probably continue to fall once we know what Benson's landing spot is and Brooks and other guys like that.
Again, I think you see him potentially being a value.
Like he could because
he's first round draft capital, man.
Just like I was saying, like Jonathan Mingo last year was case in point. He went early second. People were taking him higher, and then he was horrible. Now I think people are looking back at that. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to touch Legette now. I don't really trust what the Panthers are doing. Now you're seeing him potentially fall to the middle of the second as a first round pick or the late second, which we also saw in some mocks.
I know.
Like, it's absolutely possible that he does become a value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is gross, but it is what it is.
A wild night one. But do us a huge favor. Again, it's now 1:26 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Make sure you drop a like on this video and subscribe because we are not only hardworking, like I'm about to die. Like this is the last thing I have to do before I go home and sleep, and like I'm about to lose my mind. So
and this is before the all-night live stream.
Hey, this is pretty good practice though. We've made it to 2 a.m. and like at this point we'd have 3 hours left.
For them, I am okay.
I'm okay. I'm getting to the point where I'd need another energy drink, but like voice is what I'm worried about.
I'm going without an energy drink.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you tonight for the live streams. Peace out.